Welcome. This period, this week, from Monday, March 17th through Friday, March 21st, is especially busy astrologically. Let's talk about it. First, there are several important energies that are active all week that we should address. Overall, we're sort of at a crossroads right now, and we're sort of asked to revisit, rewrite at this point here points from the past in order to best ensure progress in the directions that we're hoping for going forward. It's a period of tremendous change. Okay, so the first thing that I want to address specifically is the Venus and Mercury retrograde in Aries that are both active right now. We see Venus here and Mercury here in Aries. That's just a symbol for the ascendant in between them. Enjoy paying attention to the chart if you are into learning astrology, and if you just want to listen to the report side of it, my hope is that that works for you as well. I'm hoping that the visuals are helpful if you want to incorporate them, but they're certainly not necessary. So it is interesting to have not just Venus retrograde in Aries, but Mercury retrograde at the same time as well. And you can see these planets are quite close to each other as well. So now is definitely a great time to slow down and not go fast so that we can avoid misunderstandings and confusion, having to redo things. But slowing down right now might not be very easy because Aries energy wants to charge forward, move forward quickly. But retrograde energy sort of pulls us in the other direction and wants us to rethink, redo, revisit words of this nature. And revisiting relationship themes, our past relationship patterns, that is a big part of Venus retrograde. Maybe thinking a lot about finances as well, or choices that we've made in the past. We're tying up loose ends and old projects. We're having conversations that we haven't had for a while, maybe even revisiting old relationships in some sort of a way. I also think that there's an interesting connection here with women because Venus retrograde can relate to women. So female friends, like female friends from the past coming up, or women from work, or just any themes around women in your life. And I think that that's a little extra true right now because we are in the period after the lunar eclipse. And that lunar eclipse also talks about themes with women. So you might notice that coming up this week. Both Mercury and Venus retrograde can be frustrating energy, but it's also meant to be a period of self-discovery through looking back. It's a great time to revisit and redefine personal goals and direction. It's a time for reflecting on the past and past actions so that you show up differently and more aligned going forward. So this is a great week to pause before acting in order to minimize the problems. And like I said, that might be a little bit difficult because that Aries energy wants to move forward, but two retrograde planets in that house and sign are pulling the energy back. And that's something that's active for all of us, whatever sign you are, wherever this falls in your chart. Okay, so in addition to this Venus and Mercury retrograde this week, it's also really important to mention that we are in an eclipse window. Sometimes it's called the eclipse portal, and this is the period between eclipses. Eclipses come in pairs, and occasionally they come three in a sequence. But these eclipses that we're in now have come in a pair. First, a lunar eclipse in Virgo, and then in a week and a half or so, we will have a solar eclipse in Aries. So we're now in that eclipse portal, as it's known. So there are a few things about that to keep in mind this week as well. So, first of all, that whole thing with women that I was saying before with Venus retrograde, worth mentioning again, a lunar eclipse can have a larger impact on women than it does men. You might notice that after the 2 weeks following a lunar eclipse feels a bit more heavy for the feminine side of in all of us, and then the 2 weeks following a solar eclipse is more uh, a part of the affects the masculine side in all of us. Also, the period after a lunar eclipse can be more emotional, introspective about how we're feeling and how we're doing, whereas the solar eclipse period is more about things actually happening in the world. So we're in that lunar eclipse period now and the period between eclipses. So it's an emotional time. It's time to, again, really complementing the Venus and Mercury retrograde energy, a time to go inward and to pay attention to our feelings. However, an eclipse window is also a period of significant movement and change. And I have noticed this to be true, especially where concerns the collective. So, depending on what's going on in your individual chart, whether or not it's hitting important planets or points, you might have a very active eclipse too. But, and we'll talk more about this as we go, but there's often so much movement in the world, right? In the collective. You'll see a lot happening in the news. So it's interesting with so much energy going inward on an individual basis, but we see all that forward movement on the outside. Um, we see that proclivity for wanting to move forward. And I think also when energy at this time moves forward, it can be a little bit frustrated. So it's not the best time to act. So when things are happening, I worry about the energy that they're coming from. In between eclipses, this period of an eclipse portal can be a period of emotional highs and lows, right? It can be an emotional time. And I think when I say that, it often sounds like negative emotions, but it's both, right? The period between eclipses brings emotional highs and lows. So be on the lookout for that this week. The period between eclipses in general, are a period of moving things forward. And there are two main different ways this can show up for us as individuals. It can be a course correction, or it can be sort of a support. So anything that happens during this time, it could be that you were sort of on the wrong path and something happens that gets you closer to where you need to be. And it's a great time to trust that whatever happened is realigning you with that right path. So even if you lose something, even if something is eclipsed from you, it is because it wasn't what was right at this stage anyway, and or that eclipsing won't last. It's temporary. Sometimes we find course corrections during eclipse periods. Also, if you are on the right path, if you have been doing the work in whatever life area is activated here, the eclipse window can sort of act as a support. It can help you find an answer. It can move you, can bring something about that moves you closer to where you're meant to be. So, course corrections and course supports during this week, during this eclipse window. So it's so interesting to put those two energies together. And there's something else I want to talk about. I think I'm actually just going to move. There are a few more things I want to talk about. Actually, it's such an exciting week astrologically. So now let's focus here. Let's focus on this pileup in the late degrees of Pisces. We have the sun this week finishing up his time in Pisces and coming into a conjunction right now as I'm recording this video with the North Node. And then as we go through the week, eventually also with Neptune. This is a sensitive time. It's a period of endings and beginnings. It's a mystical time. a time again where we're sort of aligning with our higher purpose, where we're gaining clarity about things we're meant to gain clarity about. Certain things are being illuminated for us about endings and beginnings that we're meant to pay attention to. This is a really powerful signature to add to an already potent sky. The sun moves into Aries on Friday. And when the sun moves into Aries, the sun is exalted there. And it will basically be in a conjunction with Venus retrograde at that time. Let me show this. I'm tying this together with this Pisces energy. Excuse me here for taking a second. What I want here is an arrow. I want to show you where this sun is going this week. So the sun is going to pass over the North Node, then Neptune, and then enter into Aries at 0 degrees of Aries. And at that time, we'll basically be in a conjunction with Venus retrograde. And the sun is exalted. Let's just leave that there. The sun is exalted in Aries, but basically conjunct that Venus retrograde is a little bit interesting. But it's a strong sun. I think we are in this period right now, this spring, where there are so many endings and beginnings. And I think there could be shakeups where structure is concerned, power dynamics, like what is leading the charge, relationship patterns, who's in charge, how the person in charge is leading. The beginning of the week, there's so much activity, but there's also so much introspection. It's such an interesting combination. I think this week is a real turning point. And I think the more that we all use the energy to reflect on our past, what went well, what didn't go well, what we want to improve moving forward, the better we'll be for this Aries energy as it comes in. And it's coming in. You know, there's energy both in Pisces and in Aries right now, as you can see. I will attach a video here at the end where I talk about how active this Pisces Aries threshold is for the next few weeks. And I'll attach another video as well that's relevant to the current astrology that you might want to check out. Keep in mind that this week is a week to go inward, but you might feel really compelled to move forward. Instead, go slow. Understand that some things are going to come up that are unexpected, that will take time and will take energy. Make your plans, think about things, but I would wait to fully move it forward if you can, just because you might end up having to redo it if you do it now. And also, it feels like this week is a time to sort of perfect and reflect and get our plans together as we're wrapping up this Pisces energy and moving into Aries. Leaving these energies at the end of the zodiac and moving into the beginning of the zodiac. Friday, the 20th, the 20th is the 21st, Friday the 21st. And really it's the 20th that the sun shifts into Aries. That is known as Astrology Day. It's the first day of the new year in terms of astrology. When we cross over this point, it's very significant. So I will attach that video about the Pisces Aries threshold. And I think this is a really wonderful week. I think it's a really important week. Great time to go inward and take good care of yourself. Allow some extra time for unexpected things to arise and trust that they are course correcting where necessary and supporting where necessary. So have a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back again tomorrow.